In the current Daf, Mesech Yoma Daf Pei Hey, begin on the bottom of Pedama Beis, we learn up the bottom of Yomay, where we continue with the discussion of the previous Daf regarding the halachas of Pekuach Nefashis, that we were told by Shmuel that we don't go with the laws of the majority of Pekuach Nefashis. The Gemara is going to ask on that halacha from Shmuel himself on his own opinion. Joining us for today's Daf. So we're going to discuss in today's Daf are when to follow the majority regarding saving lives on Shabbos. How do we check if the victim of a collapsed building is still alive? The source of Ibn Chal Shabbos to save a life, and the Gemara brings 7 different opinions regarding how we know that Pekuach Nefesh is Teichel Shabbos. Then we get to the next Mishnah regarding the laws of Tshuva and Kippurim, and as relates to various mitzvahs. So the key terms of in today's Daf are Pekuach Nefesh Teichel Shabbos, saving a person's life, override Shabbos, and it overrides every mitzvah besides the Gimel Averes Chamuros. Tshuva is the halacha that if a person does an aver, he has to repent, he has to have vidui, aziras achet, and kabbalah la'asim. Asham v'adai is when the person does this, he brings a kamachatas. There are a few exceptions of averes that a person brings what's called a definite asham, which is asham gizelis if someone steals, or me'ilah if he commits me'ilah misappropriation of hektish, asham shepcha charufa, he has relations with a shepcha charufa, asham nazir by a nazir, and asham etzayra. When they finish, they bring an asham. That's in contrast. Why it's called the asham vada is because the asham tali. Asham tali is a guilt offering, where the person's not sure if he did that there or not, so it atones for him. It suspends the punishment. That's called the asham tali, and therefore that's in the contrast to the asham vada. So we begin the current daf. Daf pedalet on the base, 3 lines up from the bottom of the oven. First, we're just finishing off the discussion we had in the previous stuff. Gemara says, did Shmuel really say this, that we had quoted him on the previous stuff, that the halacha is, although we generally go based on the majority, but this that we said the halacha, that if there's going to be a collapsed building, that we're going to save the Jewish person, so that's not even by the majority of Jews, it's not even nechza mechza, because that again, that would be sabim Pekuach Nefesh. The chiddush was, even if you have the majority of non-Jews, and you have one Jew, still you don't go after the majority, and you're going to save the person on the doubt that it's a Jew. So says the Gemara, did he really say this? But now we're going to say much shiur that's talking about a city that had Jews and non-Jews Kutiyim living over there. So it says the Mishnah like this: Matzabat tinik mushlach. You find a child, an infant, just laying there in the street. So Imrud Kutiyim, Kuti. So if the majority of the people in the city are Kutiyim, so then you assume that the child's a Kuti. Imrud Yisrael, if the majority of inhabitants are Yisrael, so you assume that it's Yisrael. Mechza Yisrael, if it's 50-50, then you're going to assume the status that the child is Yisrael. So that's what the Mishnah says. Now the question is, what exactly does it mean? So if Rav first says, Lo Yishon, we didn't learn that if the majority are Yisrael, that we presume that the child is the Yisrael, that's Elulach Yosef. That's only to keep the person alive. So for that, we're going to suspect that the child is Jewish, and we have to keep him alive. But for, let's say, lineage for yichus purposes, for example, let's say it's a girl, this baby, to be permitted to marry a kohen, for that we're not going to assume that the child is Jewish. Now, as Rashi points out, that even if we're not concerned that maybe the child was called Nasufi. Nasufi is that we don't know who the parents are. We have to suspect that maybe there's an element of mamzerus, where most definitely then the child would be forbidden to a kohen. No, it could even be like the cases of the Gemara says in Kedushin of Ayin Gimel and Beis, that we know that the child is put in a situation where we know that it wasn't because of any suspicion regarding the lineage of the child. But still, since we hear that even though we're talking about that there's a suspicion that maybe the child is a kutis, and even if she's a kutis and we're megayah her, and they're giyayers, doesn't make a difference, it's still going to be forbidden to kahuna. Now the question is, what do you mean? It's Rabbi Yisrael, so why are you saying it's enough to keep the child alive, but not enough to marry a couple, go based on laws of majority? No, that's what the Gemara says in Ksubis in the first paragraph of Teshuvah Aleph, that what's called Mala Asa B'Yuchsu. When it comes to kahuna, they made it an elevated status, that you need 2 rubies, you need 2 rights, not enough one majority of inhabitants, you have to have a double right, and that says Rav is the qualification of that halacha. Even if we're saying the majority of inhabitants are Yisraelim, that will treat the child as Yisrael, just to keep the child alive, but to marry off the yichus, that not. Okay. Now, as we attend up a Pehei Yoma Daf, the main opinion we want to have is Shmuel, because we're asking Shmuel himself. Shmuel, he says, it's lefakech levasagal. It's to clear out the rubble to get to that child. In other words, if the majority of inhabitants are Yisraelim, then we're going to treat that child as Yisrael. Meaning to say, if this child was under a collapsed building, we don't know the status of the child, the majority of inhabitants are Yisraelim, then we'll save that child. But if it's 50-50, then no, and for sure if the majority of inhabitants are Kutiyim, then we're not going to save this child whose status is doubtful. So wait a second. So obviously we see that by dinei nefashos, by saving a life, we go based on the laws of majority. Because if not, you should have said even if the most inhabitants are Kutiyim, but maybe the child's status is Jewish and you should save the child. You should have to clear out the rubble. Which is like if we have the situation that, let's say, in this what we have going on now, if that would be such a situation, that would be someone we don't know their status, and the members of in Florida or the people that live over there you don't know. So you should say, but this is one child, we don't know the last name, if the person is Jewish or not. You'd say, it's Shabbos, it doesn't make a difference, whatever it is, we would be mefakeh sagal, because you said you don't go based on Rav. But yet Shmuel himself is saying that no, only if the majority of inhabitants are Jewish, then you would say and to save the child, but if not, not. So it contradicts what Shmuel himself had said. Says the Gemara, no. You're reading Shmuel wrong. When Shmuel said this halach of lefakeh sagal, he was going areisha idma, meaning he wasn't going in Rav Yisrael. We said three statements. We said in Rav Kutim Kuti, in Rav Yisrael. We said mechza Yisrael. So we were reading up until now like Shmuel was going after Rav. Rav was qualifying in Rav Yisrael. And he said, it's only lachiyasei and not liyachsei. Shmuel, when he said lefakech levasagal, wasn't going on the case in Rav Yisrael. He was going on the case beforehand. We had said in Rav Kutim Kuti, most of the inhabitants there are not Jewish, so we treat that child as Jewish. On that on Shmuel, he says, regarding saving life, we don't say like that. That even if it's Rav Kutim, that we are going to be lefakech levasagal, and there you're not going to go after the majority. So if let's say that you have in that collapsed building, you have a person whose status is unknown, therefore Shmuel, yes, is correct in what he had said in the previous daf, that we would suspect that maybe the person is Jewish, and we would clear the rubble. Now, so once we introduced this Mishnah in Mesechta Machshirim, so the Gemara says, wait a second. Imriv kutim kuti l'mai hilchasa, which Rashi explains is the question is going according to Shmuel. You told me that if Rav Kutim is going to be a kuti, for what halach he's saying it's going to be a kuti? Why? What's the question? Because you told me regarding to clear the rubble on Shabbos that you would do it even if it's Rav Kutim. You have to suspect that maybe there's a Jew or that person is Jewish. For sure it's a mitzvah to keep that child alive, out of doubt. Because that's not even Chil Shabbos. So for what halacha did you say that you're going to treat this doubtful person as a kuti? So my Papa says lachila nevelis, is that you could give this child not kosher to eat until he becomes an adult, and then he, out of doubt, will accept gerus on himself. But for now, for this purposes, as a child, where the child's anyways not mechayiv mitzvahs, for that we're going to treat the child as the right of the people are kudim. We could assume that to keep him alive. We're not going to assume like that. To go ahead and save his life, we're not going to assume like that. But regarding eating kosher, not kosher, which is a child anyway, for that we're going to let him eat not kosher. Now that's Imriv Kutim. Then you said a statement in Rav Yisrael, that if the majority of inhabitants are Jewish, you treat them as Jewish. So what's that halacha for? That you're saying that is like Yisrael? In other words, you're telling me specifically if the majority are Jews, I mean it can't just be 50-50. Because as Rashi forewarns, if you think it's to tell me very simply that you cannot serve him not kosher, well that would be sufficient with mechza. Because you tell me only when roiv kutim, then you're going to treat him as a kuti. But that would tell me if it's 50-50, when it's a suffix hashakol, then you would not be able to feed him not kosher. So what do you need Rav Yisrael? Because to save the life, even Rav Kutim you'll save the life. So what do you need Rav Yisrael to treat him as Yisrael for? Says the Gemara, it's lahavzullah avidasa, to give him back his lost object. If he lost an object, it's only halacha of Yisrael. It says in the pasuk there, it's an obligation only to Yisrael. So on that we're saying, how do we know it's Yisrael? To return this lost object is only if the roib other people are Yisrael. Okay, then there's one more statement. We said three statements. Reb Kutim Kuti, Reb Yisrael Yisrael, and we said Mechza Mechza Yisrael. When they're 50-50, that you're going to treat them as Yisrael, so what's the halacha for? So Meshlokish is l'nizakim, so the laws of damages. Meaning because when an ox of a Jew gores an ox of a non-Jew, so the Jew is patur. When the ox of a Kuti gores out of a Jew, that actually is the most stringent. Whether it's a tam or a mud, he pays nezek shalom. When Yisrael gores the ox of Yisrael, that's where we have the halach. If it's a tam, he pays chatzim nezek. If it's a mud, he pays nezek shalom. So it's relevant to say what's the status of this person regarding the laws of nizakin. For that we'll say when it's 50-50 that we're going to treat him as a Jew. So it says, wait a second. Hey, Chadami, which side of the coin is this kuti on that you're telling me that you're treating his ox as the ox of a Jew? If you're saying that our ox is going his ox, and then obviously what you would be telling me that, if you tell me that his ox, the victim, that his ox, that this suffix person, you're going to treat him as a Jew, which is obviously that you're obligating a regular Jew to pay for the damages of this suffix, because you tell me he's like a Jew, because if it was a kuti, it would be patur. Well, why? Naisi raya. Let him bring proof that he's a Jew, v'nishkol, and then he'll collect. But as long as he didn't immerse in bezin for the purposes of geras, we cannot say that another Jew is going to be obligated to pay him, because who said he's a Jew? How are you assuming that to say that if a Jew gores this suffix ox, then you're treating him as a Jew because of 50-50? Let him bring a raya. Says no, it's necessary the other way around. His ox gored our ox. So on that says the Gemara that palge yohivle. So he has to give the Yisrael that he gored that Jew's ox. He has to pay him chatzi nezek like Yisrael, and idach palga, the other half of the damages, which is a doubt, meaning the Yisrael is claiming, hey, you're a kuti, pay me nezek shalom. So that other half, name alay, that suspected, that unknown, that doubtful child, that doubtful person can tell the Yisrael, I see right, love Yisrael, namashka. Bring a raya, I'm with the middle of the raya, bring a raya that I'm not Yisrael, and then take. You don't know, you don't know my status. Meaning, of course, for him to collect from the Yisrael, you can't say that, but there's the other way around. For that we're saying that mechza, we don't know, it's a suffix. That's what we're saying, that we're going to treat him as Yisrael. What are we going to treat him as Yisrael? That he's only have to pay chatzi nezik when he damages Yisrael's ox, but not going to have to be nezik shal. So that was that Mishnah, which again we explained simply because we had a contradiction in Shmuel regarding by din and the nefashos, by the halacha of when a collapsed building, what the halacha is going to be. He said that we don't go after the laws of majority. It seemed to be a contradiction. We said no, it's not true. It's not a contradiction. He agrees, and you have to read it differently. But now going back to this Shrek L'cha halacha, and we said in the Mishnah, which is Mishnah that if a building collapses, and we had, the Mishnah had said on the Pei Gimel, that so if a structure collapsed, and then it's related to on Shabbos, so it's doubtful whether a person is in over there, and it's doubtful whether he's still alive, and it's doubtful whether he's even a Jew. Allah is mafachim mazagal. We said we still machal Shabbos to try and save a Jewish life. So the Gemara says, "My kamar, why do you have to say all these doubts? What's it coming to say? All these fakes, Safik Sham, Safik Nes, Safik Yisrael. Why are you saying this?" Says the Gemara, we're saying that it's not necessary. In other words, not only are we to tell you that if we're not sure if he's there, not sure if he's any way over there, DEAC, but meaning that if he would be there, Chayhu, the Mefakhan, if he's alive, then we would clear the rubble, and that we say no. Okay, not only if we're not sure if he's there or not, but even if we're not sure if he's even alive, even if we know that he's there, still we're going to clear the rubble. And then not only if we're not sure if he's alive or dead by Yisrael, even if we're not even sure if he's even Jewish, even then, that's what we're saying. All these fake is not only that, but even that, we're going to go ahead and clear the rubble. We're always going to treat it as a rescue if we have any doubt that there might be Yisrael over there. What?
We don't know if he's there or he's not there. We don't know if he's a Jew.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It sounds like that even with all these fakers together, Safek Sham, in even in there, and Safek Mez, Safek Chai, Safek Yisrael, Safek Kuti.
It doesn't say that.
Well, you're saying that each are different cases?
Yeah.
That what? That means when we do know.
Yeah, it says either Safek Chai, Safek Mez, or there's a case of Safek Kuti, Safek Yisrael. But it doesn't say Safek Chai, Safek Mez, and Safek Kuti, Safek Yisrael.
You're saying it's not one case. Interesting point. The way the wording is saying it sounds like for the mashmois, why would it be different? Because even if we're saying a far-fetched, we don't go based on laws of majority, but then you're saying but sveka would be.
That's what you say about Kuf Nefesh, it overrides the Nefesh.
Right. Yeah, and not only that, and then look at the next thing the Mishnah said. So the Mishnah said we said that if you find him alive, so then you're going to keep on clearing the rubble to get him out. So the Gemara says, if you find him alive, it's obvious you're going to keep on digging and being Mechal Shabbos. Let's say they know someone there is crushed under the building, and they say the guy's not going to survive more than a day. It doesn't make a difference. You're still going to be Mechal Shabbos to clear him out. Pashut, even B'chai Shah. That's definitely one of the more Jewish concepts in life. That we don't care. It's not about how long the person is going to live. Every moment of life is precious. Yeah, Mchal Shabbos, even for Chai Yishah, to go ahead and get the person out. Now, the Mishnah then said, V'meis yanechu. But if he's dead already, then you leave it. You can't continue digging to get the bodies out. Says that's also partial. Why would you think Mchal Shabbos for the mess? Says no, it is necessary. Why? Because we do find a precedent in halacha that for a mess you would be Mechal Shabbos. Where do we find that? Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. The time in the Brisa, the Tanakama says, if let's say there's a fire in the building and there's a dead person, someone already died, but the fires are going on in the rubble, right? And the halacha is no, you can't save the mess because of the fire. You can't be Mechal Shabbos to get the mess out to be able to bury him or whatever it is. On that Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, she actually says, Shemati, I heard, Shematzil as a mess. You actually do. You save the dead person, at least to a chutzner, to a courtyard that has an eruv, where the only problem is about tiltal, about moving something muktzah, which is what a dead person is. That's the whole problem. It says, I heard that you would save the mess from that lake because there's a fire over there. Why? Because the halach is, and this is what the Gemara is going to explain, why you would think, okay, something over here. You're allowed Mechal Shabbos for the mess, you're allowed to clear the rubble. No, it's different. Because about Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, he only said, why did he say this? Why not Mechal Shabbos to save the mess? What's the heter? What happens is a person is very tumultuous on his dead person. Chas shalom, no one should ever know this, but a karav, this net is being burnt up in the fire. So the halacha is, Eloi Sharis, you're not going to let him go ahead and take the mess and move it to Chatzim Ureves. He's going to come to Chil Shabbos, the Raisi, because he's going to come to extinguish the fire. So therefore, we say, you know what? Let him move. It's the lesser isser to move the dead person, which is just muktzah, than to have him extinguish the fire. That's why we let it. Over here, if we don't let him clear the rubble, what exactly is the Raisi is going to do that we should let him clear the rubble to get? In other words, there's no reason why we're going to let you be Mechal Shabbos to save the dead person, because there's no Issa you're going to come to do it. There you're going to come to put out the fire. So it was necessary for us to say this halacha, because you would have thought it's like Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg said you're allowed to go ahead and do Chil Shabbos to be out of the mess, and I was saying no, that's only there where we're concerned if we don't let you, you can do something worse. There's no such a thing, so therefore that's why we're saying that it's going to be us. Now, continuing this halacha of Mapelis, of a collapsed building. So, talking about the Brisa, that the halacha is that if it looks like someone's dead because he's not moving any limbs. So this is mamish the shailas that come up. So adhechen hu boidik. So how far do you check to clear the rubble to see if it's true or not? Right? They have these infrared. They have all these technology they're using to see if anyone's alive there under the rubble. So you have the Israeli IDF soldiers. They're there and it's on Shabbos. right? So what are they allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? Is mamish the sugis that we're learning now. So you see a person, you see they could see a dead person. No, he's not moving any limbs. The question is, how far do you check to make sure to verify if the person's dead or alive? Right? We have any suffering that he's alive. We say we're going to keep on clearing. But what happens? It's Shabbos, it's Shkia, it's Friday night, and then they see that the person's not moving. Now they give him Michal Shabbos. Let's say they know that's the last one there. Again, if they have other svekas, they're going to keep on digging. But let's say they know this is the one. Only one person. So how far do you check? So it's a machlekes. The Talmud Kama says, ad chaytmai, up until his nostrils. In other words, that if there's no life in his nostrils, which there's no wind blowing by his nose, for sure he's dead, and you leave him. So if they dug all the way and they get to his nose and they see they put a leaf there or whatever, there's nothing blowing, that's it. You leave. You can't dig out anymore. The Yeshem, there's some say no ad liboy, until his heart, by his heartbeat, and you see if his heart is beating. That's where you check. Now, interesting halacha, which is mamish negaya for this Indian, is badagu motzal yom mesim. What happens if they check? They see the people on the top are dead. The building collapsed. Everyone that they're finally pulling out is all. Everyone's dead. Lo yomer kvar meisot aftem. You don't say that the bottom ones already died too. And Maisahai was the story. They found everyone that they were pulling out in the beginning were all dead, but the ones at the bottom were alive. So we continue to, it's still a search and rescue, even though we find everyone that's coming out is dead, that we say that could be the people alive, and that was actually such a story. Now the Gemara wants to say, let's say these Tanoim that we have machlekes regarding chaytmai and liboy. Where do you check to see if the person's dead or alive? It's counted Tanoim like the following Tanoim. Why? Because the time we learn the Brisa, interesting Brisa. Brisa says regarding embryonic development, from where is the child born? Where does it start? We know the child. You see in when you get the sonograms. Then they have these 4D sonograms now. It's amazing what you could see. But where does it start from? What's the first beginning? So it says the Tanakama, the child starts from his head. Shlomo says the pasuk in Tehillim. David Melech says, from the womb of my mother you pulled me out. Now, so it says the word goizi. So that's from the womb of my mother you were goizing me. Now, it says a pasuk in Yirmiyah, gozi nizrich, pull out your hair, v'shlichi, and throw it away. Now, the reason how we know that it means your hair is because it's saying nizrich. What's a nazar? A nazar is on the hair of his head. So you see that the terminology of gozi is going on nizrich, which is on the head. So we see, therefore, that that where am I formed from is from the head. That's why it says guzi. Now, Abba Sholem, he says mitivur. No, the child is developed, starts from his navel, from the center of the child. And then it sends out roots in all directions. But it starts from the center. So the Gemara is assuming that's the same as the mandam of liboy, of his heart. Just like the heart is in the center of the person, that means from tiburei, from the navel, it's from the center going out. So seemingly, this is the same machlekes. Where the child starts from, which is where his life is, that's going to be, we're going to check if the person's dead or alive. Says no, it's not true, it's not necessarily the case. Afil tema abashal, you could even say that abashal, who says that the child is formed from tiburei, from the navel, from the center, would also hold that we would check and see if he's alive now by his nostril, not from his heart. Why? Because Ad can come Abishal, where do we find Abishal saying, Hasam over there, Elin Yitzir, that's regarding his formation. The Chol Midi, because everything, the Mitziyasa Mitzir is formed from the center. Like we have Eretz Yisrael, it's the world was created, which is from the center, and everything starts from the center and then it goes outward. Avlin Pekuch Neves, regarding saving a life, I feel Abishal, even Abishal would agree, the Ikach the primary life, is Ba'apehu, is in his nostrils. Like he said the Pasuk in Bereshis. Whatever has a soul of a living spirit in its nostrils is considered something that's alive. And there is not a raya, it could be that's regarding only development, regarding formation, but regarding life now, we would go based on the nose, not based on the heart. Now, moreover, the Gemara gives another qualification. Amar Rav Papa says, Machlekes, there's so machlekes Tanoim that we had, that one opinion says that you check until the heart, the other one you said you check until the nostril, is mimata lamal. It's only if it's from bottom up, where they find the person that's digging and Nebuch, the way it came as a pancake, you could have a person that's head down, and you get there and you find the feet first. So you're checking and you're going towards the head. So one mandama says, okay, if you get to the heart and you could discern if there's some beating of life in his heart, so then you're going to check up until there, and then that will be the kaveh, that will be the criterion to see if the person's dead or alive. But the other opinion says, no, no. Sometimes you're not going to recognize a heartbeat, but you'll recognize the nostrils that there's something coming out. And therefore, that's where you had the machlekes to see if it's sufficient until the heart, or you have to continue going until you get to the nostrils. If it's top down, meaning if the person is found head up, keeping the body flat, everyone would agree that if you check the nostrils, then you don't have to check anymore to see, maybe his heart is beating, maybe just no breath coming out of his nostrils. You wouldn't have to check. It says in the pasuk, we see that the primary criterion is regarding the ruach chayim ba'apav, and if he doesn't have that, then we're going to assume the person's not alive anymore. Now the Gemara continues regarding the source of this halacha of pekuach nefesh being deicha Shabbos. The Gemara brings it as a story. Ukfar hoyer Rabbi Shmuel, where already there was Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Nazari, these Torah giants. Mahalchim b'derech, they were going on the road. The Levi Hasader, Rabbi Shmuel ben Nosha ben Elazar ben Azariah, Mahalchim acharein. So these two other ones were going behind them. And this question was asked in front of them. How do we know this great halacha that pekuach nefesh, saving a life, overrides Shabbos? So each one of them said a pshat. So then Rabbi Shmuel opened up and he said like this. Pasuk says in Shemais, if you're going to find, digging a tunnel underneath your house, you're going to find a thief, the halacha is that you're allowed to kill that guy who's trying to break into your house. So it says Rabbi Shmuel like this. He says, if this guy, Shesafik, we're not sure is he coming to just steal your jewelry? So we're going to find is he coming to kill you? So that's one part of the suffix. Moreover, Rabbi Shlichas Dalim, the owner of the house, the balabas, is permitted to murder to save his own life. That's suffix nefashis. Not sure if the guy's coming to kill you. The guy takes out a rifle, they got a shotgun. The guy's digging into his house, the guy comes with a ski mask, the guy shoots him dead. Which, Shlichas Dalim, is a very severe avera. That's metames haaretz. It defiles the land of Israel, like it says in Mamim Lam Hey. It says, tames haaretz. Don't defile the land. And that's why the Pasha writes of murder. And begoim the Shechina Shetistarik Yisrael, it causes the divine presence to be removed from the Jewish people. Like it says, Ashani Sheichem B'Seicha, which the inference is, but if you're going to defile it, I'm not going to dwell over here. And that's also by the Pasha B'Tzeach. And still, Nitin Latzilu B'Nafsha, he could save himself by killing that person. For sure, when we're not sure if a person is going to be if he's going to die or not. Of course, you're doing Shabbos. You're overriding a Shabbos, not overriding Ritzicha. There we're not even sure if the guy's coming to kill you, and you're allowed to shoot him dead, which is one of the three cardinal sins. So, which is such a shrek of Chaveira that it causes the Shechina to leave, and so for sure you're allowed to go ahead and for Pekuach Nefesh be Deicha Shabbos. That was Rabbi Shmuel Pshat. Now then Rabbi Kiva, he spoke up and he said a different Pshat. Pasuk says in Shemais, if someone's going to deliberately stand up against his friend and he's going to deceitfully kill him, so me'im mizbechi tekichen olama. So even from my altar, even if it's a kohen coming to do the avodah, you take him away to kill him. Now the diak is me'im mizbechi, from with my mizbeach, meaning if it's a kohen who's coming to do the avodah and he's really a murderer, you take him to execute him. But v'loy me'al mizbechi. It says me'im mizbechi. It doesn't say from me'al mizbechi. Meaning, if the kohen already started the avodah, you're not going to stop him in the middle of doing the avodah to take him to court. He first finishes the avodah. When he comes off, you have the agents waiting to take him in chains to take him to the court to try him for homicide. Now, this is this that we say we're going to wait. If he already started the avodah, which is guilty until proven innocent until proven guilty, we're going to not take him to court only if it's to kill him. But as we continue to days, but to keep alive, what does it mean to keep alive? Let's say this kohen who's going to do the avodah, and he's in the middle of doing the avodah, he knows to say something for the defense of a person who's being tried to be executed. And that person is going to be executed, but he knows some type of evidence that can save him. Such a person, even from on the Mizbeach, you take him away. Oh, says the Gemara, wow, so if that's the case. Umaz says, in this situation, we don't know what this guy has to say. We're not sure. Does he know about the glove? Does he not know about the glove? Well, what's it? Is there substance to what he's saying? Is it not substance? Is he going to really save the guy or not? And moreover, va'avoida, he's not doing the avoida, which is very severe. Shedich Shabbos. Avoida, doing the avoida, you're allowed to bring karbanas, which is chil Shabbos. You're allowed to do it so severe as mechal Shabbos. It's like to save a person's life. Shedich Shabbos. So shedich Shabbos, because even avoida you could override on the suffix to save someone's life. For sure, Shabbos, which is, and so to speak, less severe than avoida, for sure you could be deich Shabbos. That was the second interpretation. Then the Rabbi Lazar. Then Rabbi Lazar, he spoke up and he said his pshat. He says, "Umam mila if regarding circumcision, shehi, which that's fixing echad min nisayim v'arbam v'shmoin nevam shva'ad. It's only fixing one out of the 248 limbs in the person's body. It's like, so to speak, saving that limb, just one limb. And deichas Shabbos is override Shabbos because you chayav karos at a later time. So kavochem l'chol gufish deichas Shabbos for sure. His whole body, to save his whole body, for sure you can be deichas Shabbos. So therefore, that was his source that he said that you see that Bekuch never is deichas Shabbos. He says a different pshat. Pasuk in Shemais. It says Esham Soisei Tishmoyu. You should safeguard my Shabbos. Now Yachal Hakol. You would think whatever the circumstances is, even when there's Bekuch Nefesh. Tamam, it says no ach. It says in the pasuk only. Now the word ach is a miyut to tell you chilek, to divide and to separate, to say that not all situations will you keep Shabbos. When is that? When you have Bekuch Nefashos. He brings a different source, a pasuk in Shemais, which it says V'shmartem es Shabbos, you should safeguard the Shabbos, and it says Ki kodesh lachem, because it's holy for you. What do you mean for you? It's holy. He mesur b'yadchem. It's yours. It's given over to you. And you're not given over to it. Which means to say that it's your life that takes precedence over Shabbos. Shimon Nasir, he brings a different source, a pasuk in Shemais. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael es Shabbos. That the Jewish people, they keep the Shabbos. Lases es Shabbos l'deloisa. What does that mean to say? So that they could keep many other Shabboses. The Torah is saying, yeah, keep this Shabbos so that you should be able to keep many Shabboses, which tells you the famous phrase Chilav Shabbos Echaz. That's to create one Shabbos, Kadei Shabbos harbor that he could keep many other Shabboses. Which obviously is telling us that if a person is going to die, he's not going to keep many other Shabboses. Be Mechal Shabbos so that the person could go ahead and keep many other Shabboses. Now that Amr Yehuda, Amr Shmuel, these are all Tanai. He says, "Yeah, awesome. Had I been over there, I would have said that my pshat is better than theirs." It says that you should live with them. Why does that say you should live with the mitzvahs? You shouldn't die from them. If keeping Shabbos can make a person die, then you're mechal Shabbos because b'chai them, instead a person should live with it and not to die with them. Now Rabbi says, "L'kula islo pircha." All the Tanoim's pshatim all have a flaw and a refutation, except for Shmuel Damayra, who didn't have any refutation. The Gemara goes through each one to show what the flaw is. Rabbi Shmuel, the first pshat that he brought a kamochemer from Abba Machteres, if someone's digging a tunnel on the person's house, you're allowed to kill them to save your own skin. Says Gemara, it's not a suffix, because maybe you can say like Rava. Because Amar Rabbi says, my tema de Machteres, what's the reason of the halach of the one who's digging a tunnel that you're allowed to kill him? Chazaka, there's a presumption that ain't on the mind and atzma. Everyone knows. No one's going to stand by idly that when he sees that his money's being taken, not to save his money from the thief. Now, Fahai, this Ganav, who's coming and digging the tunnel, he knows that the homeowner is going to stand up la'apay in his face, and it's with that intention that he's coming, and he says, yeah, every thief knows this. If the homeowner is going to get up in my way, okay, tell him away, I'm going to kill him. Oh, it's with that intention that he's coming to kill. The Torah says, if someone's coming to kill you, you get up and you kill him. So therefore, it says the Gemara, it's only a case of definitive Bekuch Nefesh. It's not maybe. Nobody says, we don't know, this guy's coming to take money, he's coming to kill. The guy's coming to kill. He knows the guy's not going to stand idly by. The guy's going to say, you see someone taking out all your hard-earned cash under the mattress or whatever it is, no one's going to sit by. And he knows he's coming to kill. So therefore, Safek Menol, you don't have the halacha yet. We don't know when it's a Safek Bekuch Nefesh. which is Allah we're trying to say in our Mishnah, that even that's going to be that we don't know. So to Rabbi Kiva, Nami, he brought the raya from the Mizbechi that when you don't take the kohen who may be killed at least from the Mizbeach to prosecute him. But if he knows evidence to protect someone else and defend him, we said you take him from the Mizbeach. We say, oh, not sure if the yes mamish b'dvar manat. You see in Sovek b'gorach nefesh, we're going to be taking avodah, which is even more chamer than Shabbos. No, they look at Abaya. Because Abaya said in Sanhedrin of Mem Gimel and Aleph that someone who's being taken out to be stoned, and he says, I have a schus to say on myself. So we say, we bring him back even 4 or 5 times, as long as the substance of what he's saying. Now the Gemara says over there, how do we know if the substance of what he's saying? The guy might just be playing with us. He's just trying to delay the execution. So Abaya says, Mastrin le'zugud Rabbana. What we do is we give him a peer of rabbis. We escort him until the place of where the stoning happens. And if he says, I haven't married myself, so they listen to him. Later in Mamish B'dvav to hear if the substance of what he's saying or not. So then we'll know if we're going to bring him. The Chacham, they say, okay, a tiny good, okay, let's bring him back. But if not, they say, the guy's playing with us, so he's not going to take him back. Also, here also, by the Kohen who's doing that Vaida, you could also say that we do the same thing with him too. And we could say, the Ashkhan Vadai. This time we take him off the Mizbeach to bring him to the courthouse. It's not stam, if we're not sure. We take 2 rabbis over there and they say, heads of 2. This guy's about to be executed. They said that you know something about him. He says, who, him? Yeah, that Sunday he was with me over. Oh, okay, then come with us. If not, they're not going. So that's the Vadai to Kuf Nafash, not Safik or Namashas. So Safik Manala, we do know case of doubt. Again, that's a flaw. And says the Gemara B'Kula Shekhan Vadai. All the interpretation that we brought, we only know definitive Pekuch Nefesh and Mechal Shabbos. But Safik Manala, regarding doubt, how do we know we don't learn from them? Because as Rashi explains, all other Pshatim, for example, when it says Ach, we're learning out Chilek, that so you could say that Vada B'Kuf Nefesh is going to be excluded from keeping Shabbos. Who said about Safik? So too, when you said that Shabbos is given over to you and you're not given over to Shabbos to die. Again, that might be definite dying, not Safik. So too, when it says Mechal, so you could keep many Shabboses. Maybe it's only when it's Vada Shabboses, not Safik. So how do you know Vadai? But, says the Gemara, the Shmuel Vadi L'Slei Pircha. Shmuel most definitely does not have a fault, as Rashi explains. Because what says B'chai Behem is, it's going on not on the negative, it's going on the positive. Meaning saying that you should live with it. Meaning you should not come to a situation of maybe not living with it, which is Safik Nisa. That you see obviously Machal even on the Safik. His is the only one that doesn't have the flaw. Which Amar Rabina, Vitim Sons of Nachmi Yitzchak, Tava Chada Pilpalta Chalifta. It was better this one sharp peppercorn, which is very small, this one little seed, is Mimalatzana Dekar more than a basket full of melons. Which obviously the metaphor is, although the Tanoim are huge compared to Shmuel, who is Namayra. So it's like a basket full of melons, have all these pshatim of these Tanoim, this one small little peppercorn, which is this one little Shmuel, his pshat, the charifis, the sharpness of the peppercorn was better than all the sweetness of these large melons. His pshat did not have a pir. Now we continue the halacha of the next Mishnah, which continues onto the final theme of this Masechta, regarding Yom Kippurim that we know as the atonement, the day, Yom HaKippurim, the day of atonement. So the Mishnah tells us that Chatas v'Asham Vadei, which are both the karbanos that are brought for sin, for sins, one's called the sin offering, the guilt offering, but they're both for Averis. Now, Chatas is for most Averis. Asham Vadei is, like we mentioned, Rashi brings just 2 of the examples, Asham Gezelos, Asham Meilas. There's certain exceptions in halacha that when you do this sin, or regarding a certain purification process, you're not going to bring a chatas, you're going to bring a guilt offering. Like if someone steals, or if someone misappropriates some hektish. Now, there is, as we're going to say, there is also asham talei, which that's what we're calling this asham vadei, which comes when the person by mistake goes and he's not sure if he violated something that is karos or not, which the Gemara is going to ask. It also says kapara also by the asham talei. So why he's saying that only with these things are mechaprim are going to be atonement? But this is what the Mishnah is saying, Chatas and Asham, when you bring them, you get an atonement. Which as Rashi says, we're also presuming that the person did tshuva, because yes, without tshuva is not going to help, but if the guy did not have charata, did not have regret, and therefore repenting, then he wouldn't have brought a carbon. So the guy's bringing a carbon, already subsuming that there's tshuva over there. So Chatas and Asham, those are atonement. Now, Misa Yom Kippurim, if a person dies, or he has Yom Kippurim, then Mechaprim Ima Tshuva. They atone if they work together with repentance. Now, Mishnah qualifies tshuva mechaperes al averes kalas. If a person just does repentance, just tshuva itself, it atones for the light averes. Meaning, Allah say, when he violates a positive commandment or a negative prohibition. Now, malachamuros, but regarding the severe averes, like a chorus, hu taila, then even tshuva is not enough; it suspends. Until Yom Kippur comes along and it atones for the person. Someone says, no, I really want to do this avera. This is something I really want to do. But it's something that's forbidden. So you know what? I'll do the avera, I'll do tshuva. He must speak in the tshuva. They don't give him the opportunity to do tshuva. That's not a way to say, I'll still and I'll get the patch. No. Let's say he says, I'll do the avera, and Yom Kippur mechap. No. Yom Kippur is not mechap. More, if a person sins between him and God, Yom Kippur mechaper, Yom Kippur atones. The well-known halacha, sin between man and his fellow, Yom Kippur mechaper, Yom Kippur does not atone, until he goes and he appeases his friend. And this is Darsh Rabbi Elazar Nazari. He expounded. It says a pasuk in Vayikra. What does the pasuk say? Pasuk says, "Mikol chateiseichim lefnei Hashem titovu." From all your sins in front of Hashem, you can have a purification. What does that teach? Aveira should be nodem lamalko yibur mechaper. It says lefnei Hashem. The sins between man and God, yibur mechaper. Aveira should be nodem lachaver, yibur mechaper. Between man and his fellow man, yibur kippur is not mechaper. Achiratzis chaver, until he appeases his friend. That is the condition. It's not automatic like lefnei Hashem titovu for Yom Kippur. Rabbi Kiva says, Ashreichem Yisrael. How praiseworthy are you, the Jewish people? Lifnei mi atim etam. In front of who do you purify yourself? Mi metar eschem. Who purifies you? Which one of the pshatim is? Where it sounds redundant. No, one is atim etam, that's in front of Hashem, and one is even if you're not doing it, mi metar eschem. Hashem Himself will purify you. Who is Avichem shebeshamayim, your Father in heaven? Shenem, like says the pasuk in Yechezkel, v'zorakti aleichem mayim taharim v'tahartem. That when you spray on you the purifying waters, and you'll be purified. And by the way, like says the pasuk in Yomי, mikveh Yisrael Hashem. Hashem is the mikveh, the purification waters of the Jewish people, which is ma mikveh metaras atmeim, just like the mikveh purifies those who are tamei. After Kodesh Baruch Hu metaras, so that Kodesh Baruch Hu purifies the Jewish people. Now, I think I asked the question and says, wait a second. Why are you saying that a chatas and asham badi mechaper? It sounds like asham badi in only the definitive asham, that asham gizeil, asham ilas, all those ashamas, they are atoned, but asham talilai. But the suspended asham, which again, what you bring when you're not sure if you did this or not, sounds like that's not mechaper. But mechapar ksiva, it's not true. The pasuk of the Yikra v'chipol levakoyin ashegagas ashejaga, which that's by the asham tali. So why do you say that asham tali also had? Why don't even mention the word vadai? And the asham, including asham tali, is mechaper. So the Gemara has two answers. Hanoch mechaper kapar gumur. Asham vadai is a complete atonement. Asham tali in mechaper kapar gumur. Asham tali, the suspended asham, is not a complete atonement. Rather, as Rashi explains, it suspends to protect, to shield the person from affliction until he knows definitively that he did sin, and then he's going to bring his korban chatas. As the Gemara teaches, increases the chafav in the base. So therefore, that's why we don't mention it as mechaper, because it's not a full atonement. Where another approach is that Hanoch, by the other karbanas, the chatas and asham vadai, in acher mechaper kaparas, there's nothing else that atones for it. So we're saying that these are what atones for the person. Asham tali, in the contrast, here we're saying as a leniency, acher mechaper kaparas, and something else could do the same atonement that the asham tali does, which is not like the mission says it creases. If someone has an obligation of a chatas or a definitive asham, where he already passed by Yom Kippurim, so he's still chayav and he's still going to be obligated in his korban. Hashem is Teluyan. If he had an obligation of Asham Tali where he didn't know if he sinned or not, that he has to bring Asham Tali, Ketur Yom Kippurim is machap on the person, and he doesn't have to anymore bring Asham Tali, as the Gemara teaches increases that chafei. And that's what we're going to say machap on there, because it's not the only thing that will bring the kapara for the Asham Tali, because Yom Kippurim can do the same thing. The Mishnah continued and said, Misiv Yom Kippurim machap matshuva. Death or Yom Kippurim, they provide atonement with repentance. So it says the Gemara, Ima Tshuva in, only with Tshuva yes, but on their own they don't. Name him like a Rabbi. Let's say our Mishnah is not like Rabbi, because the time in the Bryce, the Rabbi only says, Akol HaBein Shul B'Torah, regarding all sins in the Torah, Bein Asa Tshuva, Bein Lo Asa Tshuva, whether you repented or not, Yom Kippur Mechaper. Rabbi says Yom Kippur Mechaper, even if a person did not repent, Chutz, except for three exceptions. From Miparik oil, Somebody that throws up the yoke, which Rashi explains to mean that he's kafir, he denies HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Second one's Megal Palim Torah, that he expounds the Torah in disgraceful ways, like Menashe, who he made these expositions of disgrace. He says, like Rabbeinu didn't have to write, but Tim nice to Pelegesh, he made back the Torah, which is a disgraceful interpretation. And then maybe bris basar, if someone nullifies the covenant of the flesh, meaning he doesn't do the bris milah, which the Gemara in Shavuos learns out from Sukkot. Those are the three exceptions. Where there's shemasa tshuva, that if a person repents, Yom Kippur Mechapa, Yom Kippur is going to atone. From later, that's the tshuva that he doesn't do tshuva, Yom Kippur Mechapa, Yom Kippur not Mechapa. One thing is, we're going to all of Averis, he says, you don't need tshuva. So that seems to be not like our Mishnah. It says Yom Kippur and death only atone with tshuva. That says the Gemara, no, full time Rebbe. You could even say the Mishnah like Rebbe. Because tshuva, by Yom Kippur, our Mishnah that said both is saying, if you did tshuva, you still need Yom Kippur. But Yom Kippurim, Rebbe was saying Yom Kippurim by your tshuva does not need tshuva. So it's which the Teshuvah actually goes through the wording seems to be not like then it goes to halarichas when you say like Turim Derech, which one's the primary? But the way the Gemara is answering is saying that tshuva needs Yom Kippur. So when saying Yom Kippur in tshuva, it doesn't really mean Yom Kippur needs tshuva. It means tshuva needs Yom Kippur. So doing tshuva is not going to be enough for many sins, and you still need to have Yom Kippur, like we said, by the severe sins that have cars. But Yom Kippur without tshuva would work. So in other words, one would need the other one doesn't need that one. So Yom Kippur.
So you could do tshuva on Pesach and there's no kapara until Yom Kippur?
Right, that's the same. But Averis Chamurais, like those are Chiv Karas, our mission is saying that only Averis Kalas, like a mitzvah, say a mitzvah leisa, say, then you're going to get kapara with tshuva. But something more chamad like Karas, yeah, that's our mission is saying that you wouldn't get with tshuva alone, you would have to have Yom Kippur, but it still could be like Rabbi, who says tshuva does it without Yom Kippur does it without tshuva. Yeah, Yom Kippur is the one. Tshuva, it still would make sense. You do tshuva, the stomach, it's going to delay some type of a heavenly punishment. You're doing tshuva, but you still need Yom Kippur. So let's say someone didn't have every Yom Kippur and didn't do tshuva, he has Yom Kippur. That would work even without tshuva. Thank you for any time.